Hey there folks, Mark Johnson. I'm excited to come back to you with another question from the practice exam for the Google Cloud Digital Leader. Now this is what's so cool about this exam is, to be honest, I've seen more people pass this exam over the past few weeks, month or so, and it's just really exciting to see because a lot of people are taking a plunge, and hopefully this question here is going to help you think a little bit more about when you're setting up your GCP infrastructure. And let's jump right into the question. You work for a large enterprise that is recently migrated to Google Cloud and needs to define their resource hierarchy. Your organization has multiple teams that each work independently on projects. The hierarchy needs to be structured so that the team only has access to their own resources. Which policy setting will accomplish this goal according to Google's recommended best practices? A, one organizational resource per team. Now let's jump right to the Google Cloud documentation here and look at some of their best practices. But before we go really deep into it, I want you to understand what an organizational resource is. And the organizational resource represents an organization, let's just say for an example, a company, and is the root node of the whole Google Cloud hierarchy. So the organization node sits at the very top. The key thing to understand about it is that a Google Workspace or Cloud Identity account can have one organization provisioned with it. Once an organization resource is created for a domain, all the Google Cloud projects created by members of this account domain will by default belong to this organizational resource. So basically what this is saying is anytime a managed user creates a project, it must be in that same organization. So for A, basically what they're saying is we create a new organization for each team that you're going to need to have their own cloud identity or workspace, and it's going to be their own domain. So that's what it's suggesting here. Now to show you what that looks like within a GCP environment, if I come in here to this demo environment I have set up, I have an organizational node right here, and as you can see, I have one organizational resource node, and you can tell by the little building icon next to it, and underneath it are these projects. Now what I would need to do is I need to have other subdomains essentially be created for each team. So that's how it would be done, but like I said, you'd have to have a whole completely different Google Cloud identity set up for that or workspace. And so the bottom line is that it's really not going to be the best answer because you're going to have multiple subdomains set up, and that require a lot of extra management and just resources just trying to figure out who has access to what. So it gives you more of a headache. B, one project that contains all of each team's resources. Now, for an example here, if I were to just pick this GCP Learning project, what this response is suggesting is that I create all my virtual machines, all my databases, ML project, what may have you, in this one project, this GCP Learning. And in here, I would then be able to manage each team's resources. Now that's possible, and it technically can work, but once again, it's going to give you a lot more maintenance, and it actually mixes things together in a way that just doesn't make it ideal to scale at all. So when we look over at Google Cloud's documentation, and we look down here at the project resource, it is the base level organization entity, meaning that organizations and folders can have multiple projects in them, and you need to have a project to do anything within GCP. So understand that the project is like the lowest level resource that you need to have to be able to create any type of virtual machine or any type of database within GCP. So honestly, B is not going to be the best answer because it's, once again, it's the lowest level resource. And let's move on to C. C, one project per team. Now, this one here actually does work pretty well, and I'm going to show you why. When you come in here to GCP, the last question or the last response for B, I said, okay, we were putting all of the resources in this one GCP learning project. But what this response is suggesting you do, or your option here, is let's just say we want to create new projects for each team. So that actually can work. So if I just typed in dev team, and I'll type in some random number, hopefully it hasn't been taken. Oh, it hasn't, which is great. And I just create this project. And then let's say I want to create another project for, let's say, prod team. Say prod team. And so what this is suggesting is you could have these different projects for each team. And that definitely can work. You could, but once again, you're seeing that it's just a project resource. And once again, that's the lowest level within the GCP hierarchy. And when we go back and look at, the resource on the Google Cloud documentation as well, to keep in mind here is that organizations and folders may contain multiple projects, and a project is required to use Google Cloud. So I just want to point out that the project is like the base level one. And when we look at the top level of this little nice diagram here, you're going to see the organization, and then you're going to see folders, you're going to see projects, and then you're going to see resources like virtual machines or databases or things like that. So it's not going to be the right answer, and we're going to move over to the last option here, which is going to be D. D, one folder per team. Now, I went to this diagram to show you exactly why it's going to be the best option based on Google's best practices. Is because when you're looking at the top here, you have a company, and then underneath it, with a folder, you can actually break down your different departments. And then under those folders, you can actually tie in projects to those folders. So it's pretty cool. For instance, like you can have Team A, and it may not even have any projects in that one, as you can see in this diagram. But then Team B, they do have different folders underneath them. They have subfolders. And the whole purpose of this is there's going to be different permissions at each level of this. So you'll have permissions at the organization, to the folders, and then subfolders, to the projects, down to the resources. So that's going to give you the best way to do it. Also, if I were to show you here within the console, if I were to come in here and look at an example of this demo domain, you can see I have a dev team folder set up. And I also could, if I went into manage resources in IM, we're going to come down here and manage these resources. You can see at the top, I also have an option to create a folder. And once I click on that, I can choose, what location it could be under. It could be, you just have a lot more options here. So that's the key with a folder. It's just going to give you the best way to manage it, especially when you're talking about a big enterprise. And that's going to be the right answer. So hopefully this helped you understand more about best practices for Google Cloud resources and projects, folders. I'll see you in the next video. Oh, by the way, be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.